it's looking like maybe that might be the group currently. As others join in, I will try not to repeat myself. I know that's kind of frustrating when you only have a limited time and you kind of just restart. But I do want to say, please accept the offer to be a panelist, because then you can definitely contribute to the conversation. And the conversation is about CRM or die. What we're talking about during this year of CRM chats is the book that Courtney, Kearney, and Chaz Ross-Monroe wrote last year. And what they did was, with their depth of knowledge and experience, they put together a book about CRM and data management and things that made approaching such big topics really digestible. And what we found is each month when we pick a chapter to talk through the book, it kind of walks through a CRM process. And if you've ever heard Courtney speak of it, or Chaz, I'm sure as well, CRM or die sounds like a really dark topic for the title of a book. But basically, if you don't maintain your customer relationships, the firm will in fact perish. And if you don't recognize that some of the clients are drifting away, that's kind of the inspiration, if you can see on the screen, where it kind of dissolves out. So it's one of those important topics to recognize about your firm. And so what we're talking today about specifically is Chapter 7. So what I want to do is go around and just kind of share who's on this call. I would love to know your name, your firm, what geographic location you're calling in from. And then if you've had the copy of if you have a copy of the book, or if you've read the book, and in no way does it call you out either way if you haven't read it or have never heard of it, I'm going to actually go ahead and I'll put a link in for the book. You don't need to have read it to contribute to the conversation. So I'll start. My name is Kim Sheldon. I am a project manager at CKC Consulting. I am in the Dallas area, but my joke is the suburb I live in is called McKinney, and it's so far north that in traffic patterns, I'm actually closer to Oklahoma than downtown Dallas, but I am in a Dallas suburb. I do have a copy of the book, and I was one of the lucky ones as part of Courtney's team that I was able to read an advanced copy of it and just be excited months and months before the rest of the world knew. So I'm grateful for that. What I'll do as we go around, I'll just kind of call on each person. And again, if you could give your name, your firm, your geographic location, if you have had or have read a copy of the book. So Theresa, we'll start with you.
Hey, I'm Theresa Carlisle. I am with Clark Contractors. I'm a marketing manager. We are in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I do have a copy of the book, but I haven't read it. I bought it because we are actually about to start implementing our very first CRM. And I was hoping that one of these days I'll get around to reading it, and it'll help me better advocate for using the CRM here at our firm.
That's wonderful. And this is a perfect chapter, topic, week, month to log into this so you can hear some of the discussion. Holly, I'll bounce to you for introductions.
Okay. Hi, I'm Holly Jasper. I am from McGough Construction. We're up in the Twin Cities here in Minnesota. I do have the book, and I'm halfway through it. It's actually in my purse right now, so when I have time to read it, I can grab it. So that's where I'm at. And we have you guys right now helping us. We have CRM. We are just trying to make sure it's a little better used. That's a good way to say it.
Perfect. And I will say Courtney, and you can explain your name, Courtney.
Hi, I'm Courtney Vance. I'm a senior project manager at CKC Consulting. I am in North Texas, and I have read the book. Like Kim, I was also able to get an early edition, but yes, I have read it, and it's very helpful, even still as a reference tool.
Perfect. Suzanne Keck, I see that you are on mute. I don't know if there is something in the background. If you want to just send a quick chat if you can't. Otherwise, look, you're live.
Hi, yeah. I'm with DE Corp in Houston. I'm a senior proposal coordinator, and I do not have a copy of the book. We actually implemented Coast Central last September, so I'm kind of looking for some resources and just trying to learn some more. And I came across the CKC site a couple of weeks ago, and I watched a couple of training webinars, which I thought were really great. So I just kind of wanted to tune in and see what I could learn.
Perfect. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
And then Sydney, are you also able to go off mute and introduce yourself? Thank you.
Hey, yeah, I am. So I'm Sydney. I work with Salas O'Brien, which just hired in the past month. I'm a marketing manager there. I'm coming from Birmingham, Alabama, and I have not read the book, so interested to check it out. Like Suzanne, I'm here just looking for additional resources and just want to hear tips and tricks from the group and maybe implement some of that in our own CRM. So
Perfect. Yep, that's great. Thank you for joining us. And then Erica.
Sorry about that. Hi, I'm Erica. I'm the marketing communications specialist at CKC, and I have read the book and it's helping me learn a lot. And I look forward to these discussions because I learn a lot more.
Yes, and you're in the sunny Pacific Northwest. Is that true?
Oh, that's right. Yes, I'm in Portland, Oregon, and we do have sun today.
I can tell behind your shoulder. She doesn't always have light behind her shoulders. So.
It's usually dim. Yeah.
Well, perfect. Well, I appreciate you all introducing yourselves and letting us know the status of if you've read the book and if you've implemented or not. What we do in the format of these calls is at the end of each chapter, Courtney and Chaz put a little helpful self-assessment, I think is what they're called. But they're in the form of questions. So I'm going to go ahead and post those in the chat. So if you haven't opened your chat window, it'll look like a lot. It's just not bad. But what we do is we kind of go down through the list, and it's absolutely dialogue. This is not a planned PowerPoint. There is not a lot of visuals. It is just sharing information. So to kick it off, the first question that they provided at the end of this chapter was, have you spent adequate time deciding what your desired results are for your team to work backward to identify what you want out of an integrated CRM solution? So for those who are just jumping in now, the previous chapters were talking about things such as evaluating and selecting a CRM and recognizing why you feel the firm is at a place that they need a CRM system, software-wise, because as is talked about in this book, this isn't a guide to finding the best system for you. It is more the overarching, is the system needed? And then what tools should get put in place within a company. So again, this chapter is about implementing the vision. So what the first question's asking is if the firms have spent spent adequate time deciding what those results are, so you can work backward. And I can start by giving kind of an example from my past life experience as a general contractor. And we did implement a CRM while I was there, and it was Cosential Uninet. And it really was because marketing was using a million spreadsheets, and we were pulling data that was not always accurate. We had on our InDesign spreads, we had notes and details, and it was a monster. And as you remembered which one had all those notes, you could open that proposal and believe yourself efficient, but then costs and change orders and operations, things weren't integrated very well in that firm. So in that example, when we started approaching the idea of getting a CRM, one of our big desired results was to have accurate information so that then we could give proof points in our proposals. And, accounting had their system. They didn't really care about what we were doing, and ops had theirs, and they didn't really care about what we were doing. But to win work, we had to know what they were doing, in a sense. And so that was what we did spend time on to figure out what data we needed to pull. For those who have a CRM, does that sound familiar, or were there other motivators? And what did you decide was a priority when you chose a CRM?
I will say I agree totally on that. It's just the accurate information, and also people coming up to you and being like, hey, list out all the healthcare projects you've done for the last 5 years. And all of a sudden you're like, I have no idea. Like, all of them, I can't do it, but I can give you a list. So that's one of the reasons is a big one. It's just being able to pull those distinct information, or if somebody's like, hey, have we ever done this before? Being able to like do the research really quickly instead of going through a million proposals or spreadsheets and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very, very similar. Any of the others, Theresa or Suzanne, anything with the history you guys have that?
Well, I think for us, kind of, it goes hand in hand with the accuracy of data, but just kind of having a lot of that information in one spot, that's searchable and it's sortable. That's something I'm really looking forward to having once we get our CRM implemented. Because I spent a lot of time just sifting through Word documents and trying to remember like what proposal was that one piece of information in. So I'm hoping that it will help to improve efficiency.
Definitely. And I have to laugh because I thought my brain must work so crazy because each proposal had a personality. And I'm like, wait, I know where I wrote that. And then it's like, that's not the way it's supposed to work. It should be a scalable activity. That's not just if I didn't live it, it didn't exist. So I think those type awarenesses definitely help propel and get the team that's in marketing, for example, on board. And then encouraging others to join in, which sort of leads into the second question, which was, have you allocated the necessary resources to properly manage your client relationships, your CRM, and your data management process? Because for those who have a system, you may recognize it's not a one and done and the data's stagnant, it's dynamic. And between all the people contributing to the information within the system, once it's up and running, the data management and keeping records clean or putting in good data to start with, those who are ahead of implementation, this chapter has a case study in it that Chaz and Courtney wrote about. And then it gives some really, really good tactical information as far as, having different roles and what you want to look for as far as getting people on board. And then when do you tell the whole team what's going on and how do you make sure there's communication internally within each silo? So if anyone, I don't know, is at the point where they're about to engage with the CRM, that's just making sure you have the roles and you have people dedicated to it and have the patience and understanding that the why you're doing it is so valuable. And then backing into, the roles and the time commitment that might be needed and the expectations of how long it might take before it's fully running, before the information is in there, because the decision may seem like it took a long time, but getting the data together to bring it into a system takes some period of time as well. And it's not a week for sure. So does anyone have any other thoughts about that second question? Did it hit anybody else a little different, or any thoughts on that? Yeah, it's kind of one that's just an awareness. The third question, does someone in the firm regularly clean your data and review it for silos that might be negatively affecting the business? And I think in this example, the silos are sort of if, the data for change orders or information is being kept within one group without them realizing that they're not sharing it. So is there a person that touches the data or reviews it for accuracy, whether it's when a proposal goes out and you get updated, that number is wrong or different, or that person works on this now. And so you can update those records. But do you at your individual firms have somebody that's kind of championing the data cleanup? Or is it kind of all hands on deck as you do things?
I'm going to say right now, so our situation is we had the CRM system and nobody did anything for like 2-3 years. And then we're like, all of a sudden, like, why are we paying for this and we're not using it correctly? So right now I am championing it and I'm working with IT and I'm working with some of the project managers to get it all up. So I currently am like the one going through and cleaning things out and I have a couple other people. The goal is marketing would be doing a lot of that, trying to like work with project managers and getting that information, and they have access to it as well to get that updated. But I think it will always somehow be with us, with me and in marketing, but with help from other people. And a lot of it is just getting people saying, oh yeah, I bought that project now. And you're like, okay, I didn't know that. Or
Right. That happens. And it seems like that's when the proposals go out that you find out a project's missing on a list, or there's content to add. And what is important to recognize in the way that my proposal brain worked was like part of my closeout after it was done was to go ahead and make those edits. And then the next one was already in my face. And so I was like, no, I want to do that. I really do. I know what pages my edits were on. kind of keeping that rolling concept of this is new data and I'm going to send my draft out for the team to read, but I'm going to go ahead and update it in the database now. You know, just if I learned from me in the way I was used and pulled, and, you know, best intentions. And I used to have a poster that said in my free time, you know, and it was like, there was no free time. So
and that's one of our things is after you're done with the proposal to go back and like make sure like everything matches up, the teams are, you know, on the right, all that stuff. Again, that sometimes sits on the back burner for a few months while you're going to the next proposal or the next thing.
Yes.
So
yeah, exactly. If it can just become a not a concurrent activity, but it can be something that is very timely because you know another proposal is being generated sometimes with the same team level people, and you're like, shoot, I knew that information. And then, you know, that's where ops or somebody's like, I know I've changed this, and you're like, I know. But
so I'm probably going to be the person at our company that's responsible for that. We have very small marketing resources. So I just want to, this is kind of a silly question, but when you guys say clean your data, do you just mean like review it for accuracy or redundancy or any other kind of error?
That's exactly right. The accuracy, if there's a new email address, if somebody changed firms and you're using them from a previous book that they've now moved, you know, that is a catastrophic bad situation when you submit inaccurate that way. So hopefully somebody catches it, but you know, that accuracy and just, we were saying if somebody's on a project and you're trying to show their full depth of experience and you miss the big one they're on right now because you hadn't realized they were on it. So that is huge. And then as you said, also redundancy, that can be so confusing if there are clients that have similar names and a project, if you can, in whatever system is selected, associate with a certain company. If that is not done, then you kind of lose that depth of history and networking ability to see the data as a whole. And so if there's redundant contacts, the name's in there twice, sometimes Christopher is Chris, and it looks like two different people to the system, for example, you won't see the full story because sometimes people will not recognize there were two records and they will assign things to one of each or each one of those. And it's best practice, there would be kind of maintenance reports or however the system that you select uses that just, it seems huge at first, like Firehose and like Holly had indicated, if the system wasn't being utilized for a period of time, you kind of open it up and you're like, where do we begin? And let's just start, you know, what we need to do and be methodical. Once that push is complete, it's really just like what new records were entered this week or this month, and you know, do we know, are they in there right? Is all the data we need in there? We know we push through social media and through email marketing. We have 5 new contacts that don't have emails. This week, I'm going to find these people who know these, they enter the contacts. Let me just get the email address because that's how we're going to use this information. Putting the name in is a start, but we need the email. So it's that kind of staying up on top of it so that you can best utilize the system for what, you know, well, far-reaching purpose marketing may have, for example. But it really is, it's just maintaining the records and making sure that it is the source of truth. It has the most information that is accurate. It's not trapped in somebody's Outlook account. You know, you get the information as timely as possible so it can be used. Does anybody else have any thoughts on the question as far as what cleaning the data might also mean?
A common thing that needs to be scrubbed, especially on new accounts that are pushing in data for the first time, is making sure that there are no fake email addresses, or looking to make sure that the phone numbers are actually phone numbers, or that they're, you know, coming across consistently. And, you know, it's also looking for, you know, those similarly named companies that are probably the same, but maybe, you know, one has an S on the end and one doesn't, or maybe one is Inc. and one isn't, but they're really the same company. Just trying to make it as accurate and simple and straightforward as possible.
Perfect. Thank you for that ad, C. Vance, as I know you to be C. Vance, because we have 2 Courtneys. Moving to the next question, it was, do your users receive proper and consistent training on the integrated CRM solution, covering the core elements, the new features, and how to best utilize the system for your firm. The thoughts I have on that are that it's ongoing, because there are staff members that join at different levels all the time, typically. Somebody who was in charge of something may step away. So just recognizing that everyone who needs to touch the system should be given the opportunity to be trained. And I know when we were doing the introduction, someone mentioned that there were some videos that, Courtney had, we have Synchrony Consulting has, that address best practices and approaching CRM usage. And depending on which system you have, they likely also have some sort of a portal that will have some support videos and things of that nature. But the new elements and new features, one of the databases I use all the time, they just kind of revamp the look of it, and you're like, why? Is everything where it should be? Is it where it was? Is it the same? So there's kind of just staying fresh and making sure that the users who are in there the most understand it, but those who get in there rarely also need to recognize any changes that may be happening, and kind of given best practices and reminders as far as why the system should be regularly updated and used. And sometimes they'll also address a topic. An end user might say, well, I don't actually see that screen. And you're like, oh my gosh, the permissions aren't allowing you to even see the thing I'm getting on you to do, and it's like, you don't really even realize that because your login worked great. So, there's just those kinds of things. And as people get more familiar and databases integrate with your Outlook and things can make it more efficient, just the awareness that the proper and consistent training, it's not so much a weekly how-to, but it's just making sure that the users have access to the folks who do know, or if there's one person that is sort of the end-all knowledge source, that they are accessible to the users. Yeah,
I will say, as far as training, and like I said, I just started, but from what I can see, there's been a lack of training in certain places, or a hesitancy, because we know we're in Deltek Vision right now. They know we're going to be moving to Vantage Point in the future. So there's this hesitancy to train because we're going to go to a different system. So you hate to put in the time, showing people how to do it in a system that we know we're abandoning. And then, there's also the issue of getting users to put in enough data for it to be useful. So you hate to train people and then they can't even access what they need to. So the training was kind of pointless. So they've just been kind of spinning around and around. And that's what we're trying to solve right now.
Yeah, and I would say there's probably a little bit of getting them back on board when you do have the transition to the next system. Because
exactly.
There's now kind of an ingrained, like, well, why does it matter? Or like, we didn't have to do it for so long, and now, it's a new process, or it's different. And so just the awareness of that is getting the people on board with the buy-in. And if you can find someone who's a data geek, that you're like, no, grab hold of them and then have them start, like talking it up, those type things, once you do transition, can help. But with the time we have left, it looks like we have the one last question. I will say in the chat, there's a link posted to one of Synchrony's resources, the hack to keep your CRM clean. If you see that link, if you want to poke on that before we drop the call, then you can check into that later. It's a follow-up to the previous.
I put in a couple of our blog articles up there that might be helpful, may not, but if you poke around in there, there's a lot of free resources and stuff that might be helpful for tips.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Erica. Yeah, the one about maintenance, I see that as well. So the final question for this chapter was, if you are planning a CRM solution implementation or in the process of implementing one, have you set realistic expectations using tiered approach, or have you tried to execute too much too fast? We talked a little bit earlier, kind of just the awareness of the timeline of how long things may take. And if you are about to implement or starting the implementation process, just recognizing it can't go all at once. Like you have to clean data, you have to put it into a format that the system will understand for an upload and an import. And then once it's there, recognizing there may be additional fields that will get answered, or there may be additional value lists that need to get created to kind of represent what market sectors you're currently going after, or what job titles people have now, you know, whatever it may be. So just sort of stepping back and having realistic expectations that, you know, there'll be some fluctuation of timing when everything's considered done, because just because it's implemented and there's data in there doesn't complete that full activity. There is more to come. So as far as a tiered approach, or staging out when, phasing out when, or phasing in, I suppose, when data goes in, having just an understanding that when you hit the milestones, celebrate when you've achieved the things that are going in. And if you just looked at your last 18 months of history of a 35-year-old company or a 105-year-old company, celebrate the wins as you do walk through the milestones, because that keeps the energy up. And it can be overwhelming in feeling when recognizing you're trying to move all sorts of information in and you want to see it clean. You know, the process will take a while and you just want it done. But it's very important to set the realistic expectations. So for those who have implemented or kind of are have gone through that, like Holly, you guys kind of have, it's not a re-implementation, you already are in the system, but just sort of an expectation, recognizing, you know, there's a process right now, the next 5 or 6 months, or what it might be, modules by module, we're going to make sure we can trust it. You know, it's making sure that everyone understands there's a pacing to it, and doing too much too fast doesn't really work out for anything unless you're, you know, I don't even know running. I'm not a runner, but, you know, just don't do too much too fast. Life lesson. We have just a minute or two left. Does anyone have any other questions that we didn't cover kind of related to implementation, or any feedback based on today's conversation while we're all together? Well, I will do a shameless plug, and only because I remember Erica posted for us that I think we're darn near like 200 copies sold of this. I think that's what the post said the other day. So if you haven't picked one up for your friends, you know, the holidays are coming up, and you can never buy too early, I say. So that link is at the start of the chat as far as how to get this book with the resources that were posted. And we do these calls once a month. Next month, we'll talk about chapter 8, and there are all sorts of other free resources. Chapter 8 being, spoiler, execute your vision. So look forward to seeing y'all and joining the conversation next month.
Thank you very much. This has
Thank
been very
you.
beneficial for me.
Oh, good. That's wonderful.
Yeah,